this person who's like pretty, and she's not too pretty, because then you wouldn't believe that she'd be a pilot, but she's pretty enough, right, that everybody wants to be her friend, and the men want to have sex with her.
Dang.
Thank you for that insight, maximum movie mode, right? Well,
and I'm like, what?
Well, I mean, you have those guys that kind of come in and the sleazy, like, you always get that in the apocalyptic world, like these guys that are gonna just go after with there's no inhibitions anymore.
Correct.
Right, for social reasoning. By the way, one of those guys, his last name is Papa John. All right, literally that's his last name. He's like the main guy who's gonna come after an assault. Williams, which is Moon Bloodgood's character's name, and he was actually an EMT in Terminator 3. He's the guy who tries to pick up Arnold. He's like, oh, this guy weighs a ton, right?
Okay.
Also, he's the same guy who killed Uncle Ben in the Spider-Man trilogy. So this guy he's just a bit actor working his way in lots of movies.
Who's
Good
Uncle
for him.
Ben?
Anyway, this is the MCU joke that Lance is making about how Uncle Ben's on the MCU. But moving on, so that was cool. Also, when she let him go, right, and then they capture her again, and John Connor's like, "Why'd you do it?" And she's like, I looked in his eyes, and I saw a man, not a machine. And like you cut to John, he like thinks about it, and he's like, all right, let her go. And I think to myself, like, oh, that's because he had the same, he felt that way about the T-800 in Terminator 2. Like he had that personal connection, which will end up killing him in the future, according to Terminator 3. So that's the way I see it. I read into it that way.
And that's what I thought was happening here. I thought John Connor was going to die at the end of this, because they said in T3, right, they picked him for the, right, like it's just, they picked the T-800 for his nostalgic value, but it's like here, that's fulfilling the timeline if the T-800 killed him in this movie.
But
right?
it's too soon though. It's
whatever.
11 years of a time war, right?
The timeline's spiraling out of control.
All right. Well, let's talk about it. We are going to get to the submarine and those guys in a minute, but the T-800 in this, right? I thought that was a very smart, clever, creative way. I remember in the theater, I was like, because as we understood it, Arnold was not going to be in this, and we're like, all right. But then they're like, I had a feeling like, well, who's he going to find in here? What's going on here? And then you see the room, like, oh, it's going to be Arnold. And they for the first time in the movie, they play that Terminator, and he comes out, I'm like, and it's CGI young Arnold. It was so cool. And I know the CGI is not perfect. I know that,
but that's kind of what makes it lovable, though. It's just like you know what, they knew that that's what we wanted, and they just went and did it anyway.
But and also he's a synthetic person.
Correct.
So it's okay he doesn't look perfect. Like Tron Legacy being in a computer and young Jeff Bridges. Like that's the way I justify this mid 2000s CGI. Yeah. So what did you think of them incorporating Arnold in this way, Brandon?
It completely took me by surprise in the theater. I had no clue it was going to happen, and I loved it.
They didn't put that in the trailer.
No joke.
Yeah, good thing they didn't show that in the trailer. It totally took me by surprise. It was totally. To me, it was one of those little fan service things, but it was done right.
Yes.
Because we didn't. The whole movie, they're talking about the T-800 being built, and I loved how the T-600s look in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did a really good job of it.
And you can see the rubber skin on them, like Kyle Reese had said in the other movies. So smart.
Yeah, it's not what I pictured, but it works just fine, right? Like I didn't picture them being bigger, but again, it makes sense that they would be a little bit bigger because they're like an earlier generation, right? Mm-hmm. But seeing Arnold, even if it's CGI, yes, it doesn't look that great, and honestly, it really tugs at the heartstrings properly as a fan of the franchise for me.
Yeah,
wonderful, and I'm so glad that they did it.
Yeah,
I agree.
And another bit of trivia about that, they didn't know if Arnold was going to sign on letting him use his likeness yet. So they actually they had made the sequence two different ways where he gets his face shot off immediately, so you never even really see it. But Arnold signed off on it, and it was cool. Also, so what they did was they actually used scans of him from the original Terminator for his face. So, and hey, he has the hair that the Terminator should have. Remember, I brought this up about he has the kind of the mop top hair, if you will. Mm-hmm. And in Terminator 2, he has a buzz cut for some reason, like he does. But anyway, great attention to detail there on the continuity, how he should look, and then you think to yourself, oh, well, what's the end going to be? Well, it's the T-800 versus Marcus, and so that was a cool kind of boss battle at the end that reminded you of much, much, much better than T3, which was in some respects. We didn't really get into it, but embarrassing, I think, with like, oh, she's gonna grab his crotch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I did not like that fight.
Yeah.
No, it was nice to see Marcus and him battling again, because Marcus is like he's like Arnold in T2 and T3, and he's like Kyle Reese in T1. Yeah, he didn't go back in time, he went forward in time, right, in this movie. But he's the protector of them in this movie. So it's great that we've got the T800 and him battling it out right at the end. It works really, really well.
And to see the T800 like moving around like that, like and being smart too, like it hides in the assembly line of the other ones. So it was a really cool, effective infight.
I love that part.
So,
that was pretty cool.
But let's talk about the people in the submarine. So
My man, Michael Ironside.
One of Lance's and I's favorite character actors, Michael Ironside.
I love this guy.
He's the commander of the Resistance at this point.
Yep.
And so I don't know why this line stuck with us. Say it, Lance.
Which one?
Commence
the bombing of Skynet.
like we would quote ourselves this line. I don't know why. It was just like, oh my God, is that Michael Ironside? I didn't expect to see him in the movie. So when my dad saw it, he turned to me, he's like, is that Jack Nicholson? Because Michael Ironside is kind of aged into Jack Nicholson, kind of, right? Just that sneer. I don't know. He's a perfect for a tough, like, gruff military guy. I mean, Starship Troopers. He plays General Sam Lane, Lois Lane's dad on Smallville.
He's in X-Men First Class.
Yes. So, like this guy, he's a character actor. He's carved out a niche for himself, a nice niche for himself. Also, he co-starred with Arnold in Total Recall. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, love seeing him pop up in this. So.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I thought the guys who were on the submarine were fine. I mean, like, I'm not that big of a Michael Ironside fan. Like, sure, he's fine. I don't dislike him, but I mean, I'm not going to be like, oh, the new Michael Ironside film's out. I'm going to go rush to see that.
Brandon, I don't think there are any, quote, Michael Ironside.
That's correct.
So, anyway.
But I thought it was weird that the way he was interacting with Connor, like the whole sequence, because he's like yelling at him. And I tweeted this out too. I'm like, can we please stop with the garbage line, the terrible, terrible, terrible dialogue of, this is need to know information. Well, I need to know. Oh, I hate that line. That is so cheesy.
Well, see, I liked how he was busting his balls, and I liked how he just did not buy into John Connor's savior of the world type of thing. He's like, this guy's an old school, gruff military dude, and like doesn't really. He wants John Connor to fall in line. Doesn't like him breaking his rules. Doesn't like him going off and doing whatever he wants. He wants people to fall in line and do and follow orders. And so I kind of like that dynamic because John Connor really hasn't reached, like, he has like this mythical status, right? But he still has to follow the chain of command at this point, which is kind of interesting. It's an interesting position to be in because up until this point, like it was like, oh, John Connor, this great military commander, leader of the resistance, leader of the free of the rest of the free folk in the free world. But we didn't know that like he also had a boss basically, and so that's an interesting position to have him in for a little bit.
And this movie wipes out all of the resistance, right?
Yeah.
Or at least the command. So then John Connor would naturally be the leader
afterwards. Yeah,
because I liked how it showed him like doing his speeches on this is John Connor. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance, right? I like that because he has that's how he becomes his cult following, and that ties into kind of the alternate ideas for the ending where like maybe people they don't know what he looks like, they haven't met him, but he's
all they have is like his recordings and his tapes,
mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just this he's this figure to people like this inspires hope and all that, and he talks them out of doing the attack even. So.
Yeah, and if you're this general dude, like who's like has been he's been a career military,
you're gonna be mad at this guy.
You're gonna be mad at this guy and hate this guy and not want to put up with his crap.
I will say that's Brandon. What did you think of this in the extended cut? If you can remember that, it's different, but I think like the one thing that sticks out to me of the extended cut is it's a brief moment, but it's when he holds the gun to John Connor's head.
I was just going to mention that. I'm like, what do you think about that part? Because so this is the situation. He's like, you don't need to know anything. Yes, I do. He holds a gun to his head and says, I don't believe in fate. I could kill you right now. Then they tell him all the information. And then Michael Ironside's like shaking his hand and being like, yeah, welcome to the team, buddy. Yeah, go do your thing. And I'm like, that whole scene is just really weird.
Spiraling out of control, isn't it?
Brandon, why do you hate Terminator?
I don't. I just see, and then the other thing that you guys are talking about is, I don't know, going into this movie, it feels weird to me that John Connor is like this secondary person in this, because at the end of Terminator 3, he's like, look, I'm in the base, I'm John Connor, and people like immediately respond to him in those callback messages, like, "Who are you?" He's like, "John Connor, leader of the Resistance," and he like says that like at the end of T3, does he not?
He doesn't say leader of the Resistance. He just says,
"Well, he
this
says
is
something along those lines."
This is Connor, and they're like, "Can you help us?" And that's all there is. But no,
right. So to
point
me,
taken,
them
Brandon.
saying
No, point
that
taken.
is like they're bowing to him.
Yeah, he kind of is. Terminator 3 was smart, and we're like, all right, this is why he's in charge. But this was also interesting to see him not be in charge. Because remember what Kyle Reese said in the first one? Because he was like, we were losing, and it was hopeless, and then John Connor showed up, and then we won, you know? So there is ambiguity to all that. But no, I see your point, because T3 set him up in the primary alpha presidential channel. They assumed that he was the guy, and he knew about the Terminators. He knew what to do. So, and that is something else in the extended cut. There's just a brief thing. He mentions Sarah Connor, like when he's pleading to everyone at the end, like, they locked up my mother and she was bright, so you need to listen to me now, or something. Anyway, little moments like that. But hey, let's talk about another huge character in this, Kyle Reese, right? Anton Yelchin. Rest in peace, Anton. Tragically died well before his time, a few years ago, actually. Yeah. He was great as Kyle Reese in
really
this.
was.
I believed this was the same character, and we'll get to it next time, Brandon, when we talk about Terminator Genesis. I never believed for a second that Jai Courtney was the same character as Michael Biehn, but I bought Anton Yelchin as a young Kyle Reese here, and I really like the journey they go on together in this movie.
Well, see, he put in the time to like really kind of study Michael and like his mannerisms and like in the way he moved and like the speed at which he did it, you know, because Biehn was kind of like wiry and like and everything he did was fast, and he got those mannerisms down. Anton nailed him, and I love the energy that he brought to this, and you could see that this is a young version of what we see in Terminator.
He was fine. I don't know. I think he was okay. I mean, again, I don't know. I can't see him as a young Michael Biehn, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with his performance.
In the same way, again, like, you know, obviously he played Chekhov in the Star Trek 09 movies, but in the same way, I can look at the majority of those characters and see the same characters from the original series. I can look at this Kyle Reese and see the same Kyle Reese from the original Terminator in a way that I can't in some other interpretations. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I don't know. To me, all the casting is like odd. I mean, like.
Well, we wanted someone that wasn't too pretty.
Nancy.
Because that would be unreal. No, you know, I understand what that person was saying, though, because to a point, you have to be like, what's the hygiene like of these people? You know, and it's the post-apocalypse, and I don't know. But
apparently, I did notice when I was watching tonight, like, those people have got some seriously white teeth for living in an apocalypse.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
maybe they found a toothpaste factory, and that's what they've been operating out of, Brandon. You don't know.
Yeah.
So,
bleach, I don't know.
But no.
Okay, let's talk about the machines. Let's talk about the machines.
The machines. It's about the humans.
Yeah.
That's what, you know what separates us from them? Is we bury our dead.
What a terrible line.
That was a stupid line. But hey, here's a great line. Come with me if you want to live. They worked it in.
Can I tell you something? There's a deleted scene that makes that line better.
Tell me.
So, after Sam Worthington's character gives up his heart to save Connor, Anton Yelchin, Kyle Reese, buries Sam Worthington.
Oh, really? Okay.
No
one's coming
scene,
to bury you. Oh, I see. That makes sense.
Why
are these great deleted scenes not in the director's cut?
That one should be, because that one actually then brings that line to not be a stupid line, right? Because right now it's just a stupid line, but at the end, when he's like, he buries him, right? He believes he's human. He believes he's worth burying.
Well,
right? Like,
and that reminds me of another like two lines that were funny together when he's pointing the gun at Marcus and Marcus takes the gun from him. He's like, "You point that gun at someone, you better be ready to shoot." And then when they get when those other guys point the gun at him, he says it. Kyle Reese says it to the guys pointing the gun at him, and Marcus kind of gives him a side eye, like, "Oh man, what are you doing?" Now's not the time for that. So, but you want to talk about the machine some more, Brandon? Go ahead.
So anyways, what you were just saying, though, some of the dialogue is just not too hot for me in it, but I really like the machines in this. I love the special effects. I love the addition of the Moto Terminators.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, okay, so I have a question about that.
Okay.
So why would Skynet build essentially a motorcycle
with a USB input?
Well, not only that, but just like a machine that humans could like just easily ride like a regular thing. Like, shouldn't they have made things like not compatible for humans? You think?
I don't know. I never thought about that. Like, to me, it's just like, it's a way for them to chase humans on the road.
It's an
right? Because the thing that they were attached to was that giant monster.
I think the production crew just like motorcycles.
It could be.
Well, we wanted
but
to
I don't know.
show
I
John
liked
Connor
it.
on
I
a
thought that was
motorcycle playing Guns N' Roses like
Yeah.
in Terminator 2.
I think that's what it was about.
Well, okay, I
They wanted
did
to go
not
back to
like
that?
the Transformer Terminator, to be honest. Like, I was cool
Okay,
with all
yeah.
the other designs.